Amazing. Also, their totally rebuffed drone attack last night against Indian ships leaving the Hormuz Strait is totally unacceptable. They better get their act together and fast. End quote.
So there you have this morning on Fox News the summation of the current state of the hopeful peace deal between Iran and the United States. And I just don't know how to consume this. But Jim Carafano's got a leg up on us, of course. Senior counselor to the president and E.W. Richardson Fellow for International Engagement at the Heritage Foundation. Jim, happy Friday. I need some advice for a novice, somebody who doesn't understand all of these things. How do we consume the back and forth of what's going on in these peace deals?
So the first thing you have to realize about the Iranian regime is the mindset of Arab Persian culture, which is very tribal. And if you've ever seen the movie about anyway, so Peter O'Toole goes to meet the Arab guy in the desert, and his guide, and he and they're at a well, and the guy rides up and he shoots the guide in the head. And Peter O'Toole says, "What's the deal?" He goes, "Well, he's not of my tribe and he was stealing my water." And Peter O'Toole goes, "But you didn't shoot me." And the guy said, "Well, that's because you're my friend." Right. So the point is honor in the Arab world has a very different connotation. In the West, we think you're honorable if you do the right things, if you're a nice person, if you pay your taxes, if you don't beat your wife. Obviously, you don't qualify as a Senate candidate for Maine, but in the Arab world, you're honorable if you're powerful and if your enemies fear you. So the most humiliating thing for an Arab or a Persian is to appear weak, and therefore, even if they're going to make every compromise, celebrate, they have to appear strong. So this Arab bluster is almost it's something they have to do. Right. And so if you said they're saying all this stuff in public, but underneath they're folding like a cheap tent, or a cheap suit or whatever, I would say, yeah, that's pretty common. Right. Or that they will try to bluster their way out because they can't appear to be weak. Right. And so this is the problem that they have is they're getting the living crap kicked out of them by the United States. But somehow they have to try to appear strong, even if it risks getting more attacks from the United States. Remember Saddam Hussein, who had this crazy policy of, I want to pretend like I have a nuclear weapon so the Americans fear me, but I really don't have a nuclear weapon. Right? Even though, the more you say I have a nuclear weapon, the more you're making the Americans really nervous. But it's all about I can't appear weak. So that I think explains a lot about the Iranian position is you have to appear strong no matter what is going on behind the scenes.
So obviously the administration understands this. They understand the difference between what is taking place in actual negotiations versus what kind of things get put out to the public. I would assume that the United States puts things out in the public for intent and purpose to help them however they feel it will help them in negotiations along the way. What's your assessment of how close we actually are to a peace deal? Yesterday, the president said maybe we would sign something this weekend.
Well, I think the president was pretty clear. I mean, there's going to be the deal or there's not. If there's not a deal, he's going to continue to humiliate them and degrade them to the point that they may actually wind up losing the country. So, honestly, I'm fine either way, and I'm not losing sleep. And the thing is, every day this goes on, the Iranians are worse off than the day before. So every day they postpone the inevitable, the deal they get's going to be even worse, and the situation there's going to be is even worse. So I think from the president's perspective, he's in great shape. Look, most of the Iran war stuff has been baked into the global economy now. The point where it's everybody thinks it's going to start World War III or drive massive inflation, or we're going to run out of gas or something. Everybody's past that point, and so we've kind of normalized the war. So the Iranians have nothing to scare the world with anymore. So if I were them, I would have taken a deal last week, but I'm not them. So I don't know, but honestly, I don't think it matters.
Jim Carafano speaking with us right now. Talk to me a little bit about the news that came out. I think it was released yesterday that we have been sneaking oil out of the country of Iran. Talk to me about what the administration executed here and why it matters.
Yeah, and this actually gets back to the point of what's the Trump strategy, because he vacillates back and forth between humiliating them intentionally and not humiliating them, right? And it's because he is kind of tweaking this to try to get the best response he has. So he didn't publicly state that we were moving oil through the Gulf. And the way we did this is you still have to, the straits are very narrow, get that, but you have to see something in order to kill it. And you still, especially at night, you have no visual capability to see a target, which means you either have to have radar or a GPS signal or something. So we've taken out the radars. If you turn off the GPS signal, because normally ships turn on a global signal so people can actually see where the ship is, right? If you turn that off, you can't see the ship. And so what the U.S. has been doing is basically escorting ships through the Gulf at night, and the Iranians haven't been able to shoot at them because they can't see them. Now, we didn't talk about this publicly. Part of that was probably because of operational security, but also part of it was, look, and I know that this strait is not blocked. You could pretend that it's blocked and you're blocking everything else, but we know that's not true. And I don't have to publicly humiliate you about that. But you know what? You don't want to do a deal? I will publicly humiliate about that. And kind of, so we actually already knew this, which is oil is flowing out of the Gulf, not at the levels it was before, but at a significantly increasing level, which means oil flowing out of the Gulf. So this notion of, oh my God, the straits are closed, we're going to have 20% of the world's, oil is off the market. That hasn't been true for actually weeks now.
So we're speaking with Jim Carafano right now. I think about what I've heard other experts say. I think you've mentioned this too. The way that President Trump has affected Iran's ability to do business, which is generally through the threat of terror. The big bully on the playground that I guess nobody prior to this has really been willing to go nose to nose with. Long term, their ability to do business and affect outcomes in the Middle East, but across the globe, it seems as though the president is very invested in reshaping their influence across the entire world in every possible facet that he can. How has the Middle East, those neighboring countries to Iran, how have they shifted at all their willingness to do business or to tolerate Iran as they have been acting in the past?
Well, I think one is it's definitely established the reputation that the United States is back in the region and we are calling the shots and we are the big player, and you have to respect that, and you go against the U.S. at great risk, right? The second is the U.S. is an incredibly dependable partner, and if you want to flourish, you need to get with the game, which is cooperate with the region, cooperate with your allies, cooperate with Israel. And the third is I really don't have to fear Iran anymore. I have, before people say, oh, I have to do stuff for the Iranians and then I'll do stuff for the Americans because I don't want to make either one happy. It's like the Iranians aren't a factor anymore. And the longer this goes on and the more people see the Iranians are weakened, the more they get that, it's just a pesky neighbor next door. And it's completely reshaping the geopolitics of the region. And it's all Trump. And what's frustrating about Trump is Trump does what he needs to do, as opposed to people want him to do or what they expect him to do. So he's unpredictable, he's unreliable, he doesn't know what he's doing. And none of that's true. It's, Trump is the guy he needs to be to get the thing done. If he needs to be Mr. Nice, if he needs to be Mr. Tough, what he's doing to the Iranians is, while we all sit here in these armchair quarterbacks, either, surrender, make a deal, oh my God, or no, all you can do is invade the country and pave it over. And Trump is doing neither of those things. He has hit the Iranians with a combination of military power, diplomatic isolation, and economic warfare. That is, and he's hit them with all the things that they're weakest, and he has put them on their knees. Now, the only difference between them and us is we see the world very, very differently. For us is all we really care about is that they're no longer a threat. From the Iranians is all we really care about is when this is all over, we're still in charge.
Yeah.
So when the Iranians say we're winning, well, every day they're still in charge. They're winning, but from our perspective, it's completely irrelevant. And so when I've been saying I've been saying it on your show for like a month now, we've won. We've already won. That is like totally true.
Yeah, I feel like the only outcome that is necessary for a collective, a domestic agreement with that is gas prices, which are coming down at this point. I do want to ask you one question. We're speaking with Jim Carafano with the Heritage Foundation because, you hear this, and I know that when you hear this, you probably have a gut reaction to it because you're more knowledgeable about it certainly than I am. But a collective oppositional point against what the Trump administration is doing. These people say, we had an agreement. The JCPOA is far superior to anything the president is doing now. What's your thought?
This is completely laughable. The Iranians made most of the progress towards getting a bomb under the JCPOA. They built all the infrastructure. Because the greatest sin of JCPOA, the original sin was it permitted enrichment to the Iranians to do their own enrichment. And
some trust in the Iranians.
You cannot build a nuclear bomb unless you can make highly enriched uranium. And we not only let them do that, we actually gave them the money to help do that and allowed them the international access to do that. And so the JCPOA created this problem. It never came close to Iran's never been a greater threat. For people who said JCPOA, because two things would be impossible without JCPOA. One is having the infrastructure to build a bomb, and the other is October 7th.
Yeah,
neither of those would have happened except for the conditions under JCPOA. And the problem is Trump pulled out of it, and then Biden basically came back and just said, okay, well, we're just kind of let the Iranians do whatever they want, and we got back to exactly where we started. So, Donald Trump is literally doing every American president. When people say this, they've said it 1,000 times, but every American president said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And Donald Trump is the only one who's done anything about it. And you know what? That is 1,000% true. Matter of fact, the Bush administration had a chance. When we invaded Iraq, Iranians were just scared out of their freaking minds because they thought, oh my God, we're next. And they actually came to the U.S. and said, okay, we'll cut a deal. We'll give you everything you want. And we actually turned them down because we said, oh, no, you are next. Except, we got bound down in Iraq in large part because the Iranians said, well, oh, geez, if the Americans are going to make a deal with us, we have to stop them in Iraq. So they flooded Iraq with IEDs and everything else. And then essentially, when we didn't attack them, right, then they saw that as that's like I'm on the path to where they are. So, look, when they write the history books, this guy is going to be seen as the most effective president in dealing with the Middle East ever in modern times since World War II, and that includes Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, any other president, Bill Clinton. He will be the most consequential president in dealing with the Middle East since World War II, since FDR. Period. End of statement. No question about it. That will be history's judgment.
To wrap it up, is his consequence in this conflict and resetting the table for the future and being historically notable in the way that you mentioned that he is. Could a weak president on this issue come in 2028 and screw up the whole thing? Is President Trump's efforts here strong enough to stand even that test of time?
I was actually been asked that question several times recently, and I do think that regardless of who the president is, Republican or Democrat, they're going to walk in the door in 2028 in America in such a dominant position that even if the success of Donald Trump doesn't fit their politics, they cannot unwind the position of strength they'll have created.
That's incredible. Jim Carafano, happy Friday. You watch soccer? You World Cup viewer?
I've heard of that. Is that a sport?
Yes. I don't know. The rest of the world keeps telling us it is. I'm not really into it.
Not really familiar with it. Actually, the only thing I have a grandson. He's 5 years old, right?
Yep.
Everywhere I go in the world, I try to buy him a soccer outfit from that. So he's got like
a whole bunch.
30
well, that's incredible.
all over the world. So, but that's the extent of my interest in soccer. Is do you have a cool looking soccer uniform in the size for a 5-year-old? And if the answer is yes, then I'm there for it. If not, I'm like, I don't care.
Okay. Well, I don't know if I care more than that, but that's pretty cute. I appreciate it.
Go USA. Actually, the USA is a pretty good group. It's a decent team, so I'm hoping that we're around a while.
So do I.
Because that would really make a great. I mean, if the U.S. got into the next round, that would really make things exciting for a lot of people, and I'm all for that.
Jim Carafano, thanks for being with us today. It's good to speak with you.
All right.
Take care.
Right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. He is the Senior Counselor to the President and E.W. Richardson Fellow for International Engagement at the Heritage Foundation, Jim Carafano.